And welcome to another edition of the Nerdy Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Pettersen, with my brothers and fellow nerds, Josh and AJ. This is the first podcast that we've all been together in the last 2 months.
The gang's back together.
Let's together.
Go. And this episode is brought to you by LaCroix Key Lime.
I'm sorry,
sparkling water, naturally
the key limes
essenced.
are so bad. I hate
good.
the key lime.
Luke,
you can't dog
our.
our sponsors. That's not going to work out so
How much
well.
did they pay us?
They didn't.
They didn't.
Sorry, it's
Okay,
not really.
shoot,
It's
bummer.
not really brought to us by them.
It's
but
also brought to you by allergies. Luke and Josh have allergies
It is
for
beginning.
8 months out of the year, and I demoed my deck yesterday, so they're all in my head today because there's dust everywhere when you demo a deck. Today, we are going to do another inventory update in the Twin Cities. So if you missed this, I think we did it back in February, maybe January, where we essentially have some data points as far as unaccepted offers. What are the percentage of certain terms being included? And we like to just every couple months run through what the current month's looking like compared to what previous months were looking like, just so you have an idea if you have active buyers out there, you're losing in multiples. You can start understanding why you're losing in multiples or things you can add or things you don't necessarily need to include.
one question though,
Yeah.
why are we? Is this a new calendar we're working with here, or
What do you mean?
the whole May, March, January, February?
It's Excel,
April thing?
man. Come on.
So before the podcast started, me and Josh were talking about this. AJ must have missed that conversation. We don't know. This is your spreadsheet.
it's alphabetical.
Jason made this.
Inverted alphabetical.
It's not inverted alphabetical actually, because February is 2nd.
F comes before J in the alphabet.
Oh no,
Yeah.
it is.
Oh, it is alphabetical.
Yeah.
We can fix that.
I'm an idiot.
Josh is so good at spreadsheets.
Yeah.
He can just tell. Is there you know how to make an inverted alphabetical
Well,
order
you just
as well?
sort, but yeah. The listeners really want to hear this, but the way you have to do it with spreadsheets is put a 1 in front of January and a 2 in front of February, and then you can sort them and order them. But if you do them with just the words of the month, for some reason, it doesn't automatically do that in Excel.
Do you want me to give an updated listing tally first, Luke?
Yeah, I'm curious. Listings, what are they looking like?
So every week, we have our wonderful VA Jason give us the numbers on total MLS new listings across the marketplace. We've consistently been above last year, obviously. This last week we were 12% above 2023, and we were roughly 10 to 15% below 2022.
And
So-
what have we been as far as tracking that goes? What have the numbers been the last 2 months?
Early in the year, it was around, hovering around 15, got as high as 20. But for the majority of the weeks, we're seeing it, sometimes at 10 and as high as like 16 or 17% above last year. So it's a meaningful number of listings. In our marketplace, that's equates to about 250 more listings than last year, a week. So it's an important number to track. Pending sales are kind of tracking the same sort of number too. But yeah, we're definitely the activity is well above last year in terms of closings and pending transactions happening.
I'm super curious to see going into 2025 what that number starts to look like, because in 2023, in 2022 when rates were so low, there were so many listings, there were so many sales happening that the 2023 numbers looked almost absurd because it was like 25% less listings, which makes sense because there was significantly less sales. But I feel like this year's been a lot more of a straightforward listings, pending sales year, that in 2025, I'm curious. Obviously, the rates make a big difference, but I don't think they're going to get much less than 6 or 6.5 probably in 2025, depending on what happens. You might see a very flat line. Like you're going to see within 5% probably.
I think so too. The number of new listings is a lot of times just the velocity of the movement of people. So like how quickly are they moving on from their last house? In 2021 with those awesome rates, I think a lot of folks were deciding between refinancing and just moving. And, that becomes a decision point, and a lot of folks just decided to move. So we had, around this time of year, early May, we had around 3,000 listings a week. And then, fast forward to 2022 and it was more like 2,500. And then fast forward to 2023 and it was like maybe 2,000. And now it's kind of back up in that 2,100 to 2,200 range. So we are 30% below 2021.
Jeez.
Which was probably going to be the most fast moving and chaotic market that we'll have in our real estate careers, is my guess.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about a couple times how certainty creates more activity, right? And uncertainty creates more of a impasse or pause in activity, specifically, usually among buyers, but also for sellers, right? When there's uncertainty about what's going to happen, then there's less likely to be behavior in those markets. So we have at least had the benefit this year of the rates are just kind of stagnant a little bit. I mean, they jump up and down, but there hasn't been the same level of like, what is going on with rates this year that there have been the past few years, other than no one likes that they're high. So the actual numbers they're at are causing more problems in terms of people being slower still. But the fact that they've just at least settled into a range and been consistently in a range now for a period of time, at least I think is starting to show in the market in terms of people like, okay, well, if I'm going to sell my house in the next 2 years, I might as well just put it on the market now.
Yep. Anchoring's a real thing in real estate.
It
That's
is.
what we talked about on another podcast. Well, when they were 3, then they're 7. You're anchored at 3, but when you're anchored at 7,
That's fine.
7's not too bad.
Yeah.
But I think to your point though, Luke, not to cut you off, Josh, but I think like the flat number of new listings is probably the easiest way to explain it, because like I said, in 2021, the decision was refinance or move. And those were equal decisions from a rate perspective. And now it's keep this rate, remodel, or just be okay with my house or move. And there's going to be a lot less people that decide, oh, I'm just willing to forego this rate and move.
Yes.
And more people that are deciding I'm okay with this house, or I would be okay with this house if I had a new kitchen or I added on to it or whatever. So it's a more difficult decision.
The problem with that is people don't usually have a cash to just do that. So they're still putting a new rate on that mortgage. So if they're, like people that are putting a new kitchen in or they're pushing their house back or whatever, usually they're financing that. So there's also that whole conundrum with it too. But it's
blended
they could
rates.
HELOC it or go with a second or something. If
you
want
throw
to.
the commission lawsuit on top of this, right? That's gonna be the interesting thing is when that starts coming into play and actually impacting buyers and sellers a little bit more realistically. It's gonna be really interesting to watch what the activity looks like then, because that's going to create a whole new layer of uncertainty that's not quite there yet.
Aren't we supposed to have a final decision on that? Like, what's going on?
I think we are. That is going
Next
to
week?
affect August 17th.
Sure, it's going into effect, but there hasn't been a stamp on the settlement yet. The NAR came out and the MLS has said they're going to do it.
I think there was something that happened in the courts that decided that date, and then there's a final approval in November that happens after the practice changes go into effect. And I still don't know if there is a lagging period between when the changes go into effect with NAR and when they go into effect with local MLSs that are owned by realtors as well. So there might be a different date for us than there is for NAR, weirdly. I don't know, maybe NAR owns some of the MLSs directly. August 17th, though, I believe is the date that it's supposed to.
At this point, that's what we're moving towards.
We're going to have to do, maybe next week, we can do an update on the commission lawsuit. I think that'd be important. Let's get to the numbers here. So just off the bat, the two things that I know we harp on this maybe too much, but a couple stats that I see in here that's super interesting. January inspections waived on accepted offers. January, it's 16% on here. 2 months later, 32% in March. A double amount of needing to waive your inspections on offers to get offers accepted is pretty incredible. And obviously the biggest reason for that is there's less buyer demand in January, because my assumption is that it takes some time. Buyers can get approved and get ready overnight, but it takes a couple weeks for some of them. And most people aren't starting in December. So it is something to talk about with your clients of, if it's December and I know it's Christmas, I know it's New Year's and I know you have a lot going on, but maybe just get that pre-approval on December 28th so that on January 1st you can start, because it's only a 2-month difference. And some of these differences are massive. I mean, you look at seller contributions towards buyers' closing costs in January, 41% of the offers, almost half. In March, it's 23%.
And today, it's 22.
Yeah, even less.
What's interesting, like we talk about when we go through these often, is if you just look at inspections waived, average purchase price to list price,
escalation clauses included.
Yep, contingent on, home warranties included. You can
appraisal
see
gaps.
They all kind of move in the exact same direction on these bigger items. So like median purchase price to list price in January was 99%, only 16% of inspections waived. Obviously, the buyers were getting the lowest prices to the list price, and they were including inspections, and they were getting more seller contributions because the market, to Luke's point, just wasn't as hot as it is now.
Yep. And there were no appraisal. Like, look at the appraisal gaps going from 7% in January to 18% in May.
Crazy.
I still think that number is shockingly low, but we talk about that every time. I'm like, I think we should use appraisal gaps more as a marketplace based on the numbers I'm seeing here. But I think it's just it's still quite telling that the market's gotten a little more competitive. It does feel like it has had these weird pockets of competition followed by like quiet, followed by competition, followed by quiet. It feels like it's jumped around a lot more where I'm like, oh, it's going to get a little slow, and then it doesn't get slow. But there's like does that make sense what I'm saying? Like it feels
felt like that.
Some weeks are just like, they're a little quieter than I thought they were going to be. And it's maybe going to start going backwards a little bit or get a little quieter. And then the next week it's like, oh, it's got busy again. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
I think it's become a lot house to house. Like when
very true.
And price point. I mean, I listed one at $365 in Chaska. I mean, you had that one in St. Louis Park. That was the bottom of the market. The bottom of the market is just ripping because there's a certain offset of buyers that can only pay so much, and there's nothing available. So on those ones, they all throw at them because it's their only option.
Yep.
But the second you get to like 450, there's decent amount. Unless you're the best house.
Yeah, and I've learned that this would be I think this is my 10th, maybe 11th.
I think it's
year.
10.
10th
I did
year,
the math.
10th full year doing this.
I did the math.
From the seasonality perspective, and I will say that the least predictable market is, I would argue, one could say winter, but I would say the least predictable market week to week is between May and like September 15th, because you had Mother's Day last weekend. That adjusted all of my list dates up one day.
Yep.
You have then in next week is Memorial Day.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the end of school the next week. And then you have like 3 weeks, and then you have July 4th.
Yep.
And then you get like 5 weeks, and then you have Labor Day, and then you have start of school. So like
you also have like these weird weather weekends where some people are like, well, the weather's great this weekend, so I'm not going. Like it's really hit or miss comparably. I completely agree with you on that.
With that, I'm super curious in the next 3 months when we come back to this, at what point we start seeing the backwards trickle towards January, right? So 16% inspection waves in January, they peak at 32, let's say. Are they going to be back at 16 in July? Is it August? Is it September? When does that number start to go
October.
back? You didn't say it take that long.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a pocket in July usually, dude.
There sometimes is.
I feel like July's a weird month where the 4th of July throws that whole month off a little bit. And so it tends to like, it peaks, and then it kind of slows, and then it comes back, I feel like August and September until October. But we'll be able to tell in a couple months here.
Any other stats on here that you two find
No, I think your point about it being house specific is really important, though. I think as the rates have climbed, we have seen more and more people being particular in their searches, right? So, like, I had an offer in this weekend on a house that was $565, and they got 10 offers at $565. Jeez. And I was like, I called initially, and they're like, we have 3 offers. I'm like, okay, perfect. We'll put together this offer that's very competitive. And I thought we were guaranteed to win with what we put in. And somebody else put in an offer that was just slightly better than ours. And the fact that there were 10, it made that a lot more likely that was going to happen. And 7 of them or 6 of them came in at the last minute, which felt like more of like
what school district?
Minnetonka.
There you go.
Yeah. So that was interesting. But at the same time, I have other clients that are looking like in the 7 to 850 range out in Plymouth. And the world is their oyster at this point. I mean, the houses that are out in that range right now, I think, are more average, and everyone is passing on them.
You know, Josh, you know what's interesting?
Straight out of the 90s?
I have so many houses in the 90s.
I have an interesting theory. I talked with a client yesterday. I talked with an agent on our team about it, specifically like Minnetonka schools. And I know not everybody listening to this is
familiar,
super local, but this is like primo school district with nowhere to build.
Like top 5 schools in the cities.
But the key is there's nowhere to build.
Yep.
So there's not a new construction option anywhere where you can get like a track built house like you can in Wayzata schools. There's no dirt left.
Yeah. I'm saying in Wayzata, it's going to fill up in the next year or two.
There's a lot of land left over there in Wayzata, man. It's crazy.
But anyways,
is what you see at the bottom of markets, and I think we've experienced this in St. Louis Park.
Yep.
Back when the bottom prices started coming up higher, where they were 250, 275, but the top end was like 425. You get this bunching of pricing.
Yep.
Around the bottom, and I think in Tonka, it specifically is like on the east side of the district, so like just across the park from our house, is a good example, where the worst house is going to sell for like $425, and the best house, assuming it's not torn down in the past, like it's still like the other houses, is not selling for more than 600,000.
Yep.
So it makes it really difficult for investors to buy the bottom house. But it also like shows you that your house isn't necessarily going to appreciate that much unless you add space to it in those marketplaces. And so the reason why that happens, in my opinion, is the bottom of the market in those areas has competition from either new construction tearing homes down.
Yep.
But really just because the value of those homes are so close to the actual dirt value of that property. And so the actual house itself can't even add that much value to that property. It's like a super interesting conundrum.
Unless you knock it over.
Or
do an addition or
build a
whatnot.
new one.
I had another one because that's why I asked about the school district, because I had one in Plymouth Wayzata Schools this weekend. It was just at 400, a 2-level split. And we were walking around and I was going, 400 for a 2-level split with a nice yard. It's livable currently, like it's in decent condition. This just doesn't feel right in the Wayzata School District. Like this is the cheapest house, you know?
Yeah.
We offered up to 441 and I said, I think it's going to go for about 450. And sure enough, we lost.
Yeah,
Like, I'm sure they had 10 offers. I mean, it's what that is. Because 560 is, I mean, you're not the bottom of the Minnetonka market, but you're close.
It went to over 625.
I'm sure it did. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, we bought our place for 330 in 2020. That's why I said, I was like, I'm pretty sure the land is worth 300.
It's a fair point though, AJ, because you think about like the cost, even of when those houses were constructed, if you were to recreate with, you know, the stick framing and all that they put in those houses, it would cost a lot more than $200,000 to build them.
Oh gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the value of the home and the value of the land get kind of separated in a way that's kind of comedic, because the house that's going to be torn down is, I mean, the lots are at 350 at least in that area.
Has to be, right?
So,
Your neighborhood?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Sure they are
the
in mine.
lowest price lots are right around 350.
What did that house sell in the corner?
350.
That's what
was
that got?
2 years ago. Yeah.
Jeez, that might be 400.
We have clients at building right now at 425 on the lot.
Value?
Yep.
And so, yeah, that's the funny thing is like, but other houses might be selling for 550 in the neighborhood that are just in okay shape, but are like the houses aren't falling down. So the actual value that we're placing on the land versus the house, it gets kind of funny at the way the math tends to
Just
wake up.
that bunching. Yeah. So anyway, it
On
was
the
a
flip side, though-
dorky thing I noticed.
But on the flip side, though, the actual value
Nerdy,
associated with the
AJ,
fact that
nerdy.
you can't build in these areas, like the equity growth is really significant because everyone keeps pushing in there. So the buyer demand is so high that you're right, that gap gets shrunk, but the actual value of the bottom houses just keeps coming up so fast.
And I notice it in markets like that. St. Louis Park's a great example too. There's not like 10 acres where they're like putting up a bunch of 2-story homes. Whereas in Plymouth, like you're saying, like at 700,000-800,000, like you have the run of the land. If you want to, you can
buy
kind of
anything.
whatever you want. But the reason why is the buyers that are competing with you for an existing 700-800 are also looking at building with a Lennar or a Pulte or DR Horton in one of those larger developments.
Yep.
And they have more options.
Totally.
The new construction always adds more options and creates more affordability for existing homes in a same school district marketplace.
I mean, St. Louis Park's a great example. The bottom of the market's like 350 right now in St. Louis Park.
It's ridiculous.
And our 4-bed, 2-bath, brand new houses, 1-car or 2-car garages they've been pushing 455 for 3 years.
Yep.
And they've maybe clipped 5. Maybe. I think we thought it was going to, and I bet they're a little bit below now, which is nuts because that's a brand new house for only $100,000.
Not brand new construction, but brand new renovation.
Brand new finishes, bigger, way bigger. These are 2-bed, 1-baths for $350.
Yep.
Well, that's us getting a little bit off topic. We talked in circles today, but that's your inventory update
That's
in
what
the Twin
happens when you
Cities
put us all back
area
together, right?
for the first time in a month. Let's not talk
Gotta
about
catch up.
Let's not talk about the Timberwolves winning in the second round and advancing to the
Stop.
Western
Just
Conference
stop.
Finals today. And that's all we have this week on the Nerdy Agent Podcast. And as always, remember, be better.
Bye.
Ow.